CanPL.ca Newsroom for this weekend. Marty Thompson, Charlie O'Connor Clarke, Benedict Rhodes, and Brady Reid post-Canada Honduras. Canada won. Honduras won the first game of the final round of 2022 World Cup qualifying. Canada's first soiree, really, in the last round for over 20 years. It happened at BMO Field last night. Charlie, Ben, you guys were there. Well, we're going to get into that in a bit. But first, we have to do an opening question. Christian's not here. We're going to have a bit of fun. In honor of Alexander Lopez being stretchered off after scoring the penalty against against Canada, what's the lamest, most embarrassing injury you've ever received? No knock on Alexander. That was a great penalty, but just not the best way you want to leave the game. Charlie?
No knock on him? Okay. I think I'll go with the time that I just absolutely somehow mangled my Achilles in a rugby game. Not even on the ball. Just ran backwards too much, stepped on it weird, and all of a sudden I had to collapse because my Achilles just did not want to bend anymore. So that was a tough one.
Brady?
Yeah, I was once playing in a soccer baseball, kickball tournament in the outfield, and a foul ball went over the fence, and I thought I'd be the guy to go retrieve it, and I didn't stick the landing and tore all my ligaments and missed the rest of the soccer season. So me and my coach were on bad terms after that one. I've retired from soccer baseball since.
Yeah, he's like, you got that in soccer baseball? Benedict?
Yeah, I have a boring answer here because I've never really had a serious injury like that, but maybe just getting clocked in the face a couple times playing soccer. Maybe I don't know, nothing too serious.
Yeah. Okay. Well, nothing as serious as being stretchered off after scoring a goal. Really felt bad for Lopez on that play. Let's talk about this game. Not some of the nonsense. So Canada draws Honduras in this opening game at BMO Field in Toronto. We'll start with maybe the occasion first. Charlie and Ben, as you mentioned, you guys were there in the stands. Before we get into the results, what happened between the lines, this was a special night for the men's national team, right? First time in the final round since the 1998 cycle, and the first home game at home in almost 2 years. Charlie, can you give us maybe just a bit of what the atmosphere was like at BMO Field last night?
Yeah, the atmosphere was really good, to be honest. And I know that obviously BMO Field's not allowed to sell its whole capacity just yet because of COVID restrictions. So I think there were probably about 15,000 people there, but it was a loud 15,000. It was very, very loud. And you could tell, whenever Canada started coming up, every time, for example, Alphonso Davies got the ball, because I think he's probably the name that even the casuals and people coming after their first game, he's a name that everybody would recognize. You could hear the energy pick up. There were, to be fair, there was a pretty good contingent of Hondurans there as well, and they were also very loud. So it made for kind of a fun back and forth in the stands. And when Honduras scored their goal, you could hear them their cheers, almost on par with the very, very vociferous boos that were raining down on the referee. But yeah, it was really, really nice to just see that atmosphere back, and nice to feel that energy. And you did feel, you felt like the crowd knew what was at stake and knew kind of what was going on. It felt like an intelligent crowd. It felt like, a crowd that was here to, watch Canada try and qualify for a World Cup. They're not out for a night out. They're here to watch this team. And it was, a very, very fun energy in that stadium. And it's a pity that they weren't rewarded more than once.
Yeah, Benedict, it really felt like the crowd sort of matched the moment for this men's national team, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think you felt as maybe the fans were sort of trying to will in a winner after they found the back of the net, Kyle Aaron. And Charlie said, every time Canada had the ball, it seemed like fans were going nuts. I was in the south end where it was especially loud, I think. But there's also, like Charlie said, a lot of Hondurans there. I almost want to say there was maybe more blue than red for this. Yeah, it was a great atmosphere from both sides of fans.
It didn't sound like there'd be more blue than red on the broadcast for Brady and I watching on OneSoccer and on Rogers Sportsnet last night. let's talk about the game overall. I think we're going to spend quite a bit of time dissecting what happened on the field last night. Brady, we'll switch to you. You were our correspondent for this game, doing the match analysis, which was great on the website. We'll talk a little bit about the tactics in a moment, but just your overall thoughts on Canada's performance in a game that, look, I mean, coming in, confidence was pretty high. Anyone who listened to the On the Pitch this week with Christian Jack, whether it be through Richie Larea, Alistair Johnson, all these players were pretty confident going into this game. And I think maybe ultimately it was a reminder that this final round of World Cup qualifying at Concacaf is going to be difficult. But that all being said, how did you rate Brady?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, obviously confidence was high coming into this. I think you could see that based on the 11 they picked. It was a very attacking team. It was a team that was set up to get as many of their, pacey and kind of direct players on the field at once. And I think we've seen mixed results as a result of that. And I think, it's easy to criticize, the formation, the selection from John Herdman, maybe, the approach, the nerves of the Canadian players, but I think Honduras deserve a lot of credit for the way that they were set up and they were organized and quite frankly experienced. This is a country that somehow every year, no matter how many flashy players, Canada, US, Mexico have, they're in it, right? They're always in it at the end, and whether they're actually qualifying for the World Cup, they're testing these teams home and away. And so I think maybe just, for a lot of Canadian fans, we don't know too much about this Honduran roster, save for the guys that play MLS and that sort of thing. So there was an element of surprise of that way. And once Canada set up in a formation, like you said, we can get into that, was a little bit hard to honestly follow and obviously a little bit hard to execute too. It made for a little bit of a shaky start, but I thought it was, as John Herdman said, a tale of two halves, and they really showed at least some of their potential in the closing 45.
Canada has played Honduras in the last 4 World Cup qualifying cycles. This one now the 5th. Charlie, we'll switch to you here. Plenty of scoring chances in this game, frankly, and the chances generated, they weren't clear cut, but Canada was always knocking on the door. I think about Jonathan David's chance at the near post, even Richie Larea at the end there on a similar play. What did you make of how Canada was going forward in the second half after they started to click?
Yeah, I think that's kind of exactly it, and it really does bother me that Canada couldn't find that goal from open play, because in that second half they really started to put it together. They started to figure it out. I felt that they were getting a little bit found out at times, because they were trying a lot of the same things with it'd be Alphonso Davies running down the left wing and looking for the cutback, and I think almost every time it turned into a corner, which is good, and that's a set piece opportunity. But the Honduran defender always seemed to be in position to stop it from getting set to a guy at the top of the box. And I might have, I don't know, maybe like to see Canada maybe try and work it through the middle a little bit or something like that, which they didn't really try to do all that much in this game. But yeah, you can't really say anything other than they had their chances, and they did look good going forward, or at least positive with the ball, and they were really trying to get at Honduras, and certainly Honduras felt like they were on the back foot, and they tried to slow things down in that sort of sense. So it's definitely frustrating for Canada that they couldn't find that extra ball, that final little touch to score the goal. Probably should have, and I think a couple of those chances, they'll be looking back at them and really, really being frustrated that they didn't end up in the net. But there's certainly elements to this game of that Canada attack that we have seen be very successful in recent months.
Brady, you touched on the initial lineup that John Herdman had fielded, which was not exactly accurate to what we predicted on this very podcast, but doesn't matter. 4-4-2 kind of, and it eventually molded into what we honestly expected with the back three. Can you walk us through, as you said, it was difficult to follow. Could you walk us through the tactics in this game, and then frankly what worked and what didn't work for Canada?
Yeah, and obviously, Buchanan gets hooked at the half, and then Junior Hoylett comes in, and that wasn't necessarily the reason that things got better, but I think overall it was it was a complete tactical adjustment, as you said. And Hoylett's a very different player than Buchanan. Buchanan's got obviously a tremendous amount of pace, very direct, whereas Junior's a little bit more of a dribbler. He likes to slow things down, and I think maybe they were missing that a little bit in the first half, particularly in central areas. And so it was pretty clear that they thought they wanted to get Larea advanced in central areas to kind of give Davies some ability to operate on the left. And I thought Oliver Platt made a great point on OneSoccer when he said they weren't really getting Davies in the right areas. When he was able to get one-on-one, of course he's going to beat guys. I think he's going to beat just about anybody when he gets to those opportunities. But we weren't finding him in stride, and that was the case with Larea, and obviously that's his strength. That was the case with Buchanan. They're very similar players to an extent, and so I think the element of just something different in Hoylett was obviously good. But I think to a degree this game was probably screaming out for a Mark Anthony Kay or maybe a Jonathan Osorio in the middle of the park, and I don't know why they decided Larea in that central area was how they wanted to exploit Honduras. Maybe they thought they'd be able to get them in transition a little bit more, but I think one of the small, I guess, moral victories is you have another game in 2 days now from the time of recording, and you have Jonathan Osorio and Mark Anthony coming in very fresh. So that's something to kind of say. Yes, it's 2 drop points, but that's 2 major players that are going to be ready to go in Nashville.
Ben, fans walking away from BMO Field or turning off their television last night, maybe a bit of disappointment. What do you think the average fan, along with John Herdman at this point, frankly, has learned about this Canadian men's national team through this game that we can look for in the next 13 games in this final stage?
Yeah, I think even though the result maybe didn't go their way, I think they showed that they can go toe-to-toe with the best teams in Concacaf, and I think that's important. I think they obviously, they said they maybe should have won this game, and I think that's also going to take away is if they start finishing their chances, they'll start to beat these teams and pick up some big needed points. And obviously they would have liked that to start last night, but I think a draw is still a good result, and it's something to build on going into future games as well.
On a scale of 1 to 10, Atiba and Steven Estacio midfield. Charlie.
Scale of 1 to 10?
10 being the best that Canada's midfield has played in the last 24 months.
Well, they didn't really play together with the ball that much, to be honest. So maybe like a 6. I don't know. I'm honestly quite frustrated with the way that game sort of went down. And I think it is a very good pairing. And I actually thought Stefan Estacio was quite good in this game. And he was, he covered tons of ground. He always seemed to be there when Canada had the ball. He was always in frame. I mean, I didn't see it on a TV, so everybody was in frame for me, but he just always seemed to be in the area where, all the action was. But I felt like if you're talking about, Estacio and Atiba Hutchinson being that sort of double pivot, I don't think that they really were, kind of playing in the same sort of roles. And it was a little weird for me at times when Estacio was actually playing as the deeper midfielder. It felt like sometimes Estacio was the one that was sitting back more in front of the back four and looking to pick up those balls and play out of the back, whereas Atiba was sort of more in the middle of things, and he seemed to be the guy that was trying to, just stop Honduras in transition and win the balls back a little bit more often. But I would have maybe liked to see them, play off each other a little bit more and play as that sort of double pivot. I think Brady mentioned it. Absolutely, this game was crying out for Mark Anthony Kay. And maybe it's a situation of you have to play the long game, and he'll be available for that US game. But I think both players individually, Estacio and Hutchinson, had pretty reasonably strong games. But I'm not sure necessarily that that they definitely don't have that chemistry yet. Absolutely, because they haven't played together all that much. Yeah. And I think they were maybe just trying to do some different things that maybe weren't linking up well with one another.
Ben, scale of 1 to 10.
Yeah, I'll say like a 6.5, maybe 7. Like Charlie said, like they were good. They were good individually, but I'm not sure if they were the strongest possible duo, if that makes sense. Like they left a lot to be desired as a partnership, I think.
And Brady, I'll get a rating from you. Charlie just talked about how sort of frustrating this game was at times, and you touched on it there. Getting the ball up through the middle was maybe the most frustrating part.
Yeah, it really was that transitional areas I thought that let them down, and we kind of hindered them from making the most of the likes of Davies and Buchanan and Lorea's pace. And Charlie doesn't have the benefit that I do of having seen the post game analysis of OneSoccer. I'll steal another term from Christian. He works here, so I can do this. He's double A.
You can do that. I mean, he's physically not here, so it wouldn't be like you're just like lifting something he had just said.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get permission after. I'll source my my quotes, but balance was a word that he used several times afterwards, and it was maybe something that Canada lacked on the day. Eustachio and Hutchinson, both great players and both played decent. I thought actually I gave Aleister Johnson the man of the match, but if not for him, it probably would have been Eustachio. But maybe too similar at times. Like both guys who like to sit deeper and Alistair Johnson likened himself to Azpilicueta when he spoke with KJ earlier this week. I think if we want to stick with Chelsea, like Eustachio is kind of that Conte player for Canada, right? Putting out fires, but still as like a motor of a number 8, as Charlie alluded to. Maybe he's that guy who is a little bit higher up and puts out that initial kind of wave of attack. And then from there, I think they would have just benefited so much from having a third body, be that Osorio or Kay. But I just personally like the idea of Mark Anthony Kay. I think his passing range is something that we don't have a ton of on this team. But I think six is fair. I'll go with 6.
Okay, we're gonna 6.25. I think. No, actually, it would be closer to like 6.18, something like that. But we won't do the numbers. We're not that good at numbers.
No.
Aleister Johnson. We've got to talk about
Yeah. Thumbs up.
Yeah, thumbs up. We'll go to Charlie on this one. Maybe let's just talk about what this defensive unit would be without a player like that. Just an absolute difference maker. Multiple clear clearances or important clearances. I think about that one ball that came over the top that it looked like the Onturan player was on the near side. I think that was in the first half where Alistair's sort of flicked it away. Considering his chat on Beyond the Pitch too, Charlie, what do you really make of this player at this point and being a crucial part for this Canadian back line?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, isn't it, how quickly he's become, one of the more critical players to this team. And I think if you don't have Aleister Johnson there last night, then you might be talking about a loss, because they're, especially in that second half, maybe the last 25 minutes or so of that game, Canada obviously were pressing and looking for that goal, but they gave the ball away a lot, and they were kind of pinned back on the counterattacks a few times, and it always seemed to be Alistair Johnston that was there, right? Mm-hmm. To maybe break things up. And a couple of those tackles he made were just, extremely brave, as, one of the, like, either the last man or one of two men back on the counterattack, and he would still throw himself into these sliding tackles, which, if you miss, then it's like a 2-on-0 for Honduras. But he would make them, and he's a very intelligent player, so he's not going to throw himself into those things just blindly, right? So I really think that he was a very, very important part of this Canada team last night, and even with the ball in possession, he was very good. And I know he kind of started in that right back role, so he was a little bit further over to the edge than maybe he has been in recent games for Canada, and he was looking to get a little bit higher up the pitch. But once they moved into the back three, he really was sort of patrolling the whole area behind the team, and it really worked out for Canada. And Aleister Johnston is just a fantastic player on and off the ball. He obviously, as I said, he made those tackles, but he would get the ball he'd be quite often the primary option for Milan Borjan to pass to, and he would be able to pick somebody out with those passes. He would try to find often Junior Hoylett down that right side with those passes, or he'd switch it back across. And I could talk about Alistair Johnston and how great he is forever, but it really is remarkable just how quickly he's become one of the most likable players, I think, on this team, just in terms of the work ethic and the way that he just really wants to get stuck into all of these opportunities in the game.
If you haven't heard the Beyond the Pitch interview, please scroll up your feed and check that out. It was incredible. Him talking about, not going to sleepovers as a kid because, you got to wake up at 7 to watch United. So, no, Screw you. I'm not going to your house. I'm going to watch soccer the next morning. Okay, quickly, Milan Borjan, great save there late in the second half. Got to shout that out. Also, Kyle Laird with that goal, and now joint second all-time in the Canada's goal-scoring record behind Dwayne De Rosario. Maybe, Ben, just a quick 2 thoughts on these 2 players. It was interesting on a night where Alphonso Davies makes a big return to Canada. Same with Atiba Hutchinson at this point, frankly. But it were those players that Laird obviously in the shadows of Jonathan David and Davies to a certain extent, and Milan Borjan has obviously been around for a while. But these players that have just been here with this Canadian men's national team for so long and have really been sturdy operators at this point.
Yeah, I think those are the kind of the glue guys, if you will, if you just want to bring the whole team from good to great. I think like you have the big stars on either end of the pitch, but then you need the guys who have the experience and the skills to sort of round everything into shape. And I think those guys are Kyle Laird and Milan Borjan, and Borjan in particular I thought was really good. Just when you're in the South End, I guess you can really hear the communication and sort of see it more up close what he does behind the scenes, and you tell like they really listen to him and they really sort of a lot of the play goes through him, even if he doesn't necessarily have the ball. And then Kyle Laird, of course, is you said second all time now in goals, I think tied for second, he's been one of the main pieces of this team for a long time now, and imagine that'll only continue to be the case.
Borjan just kept pumping up the crowd last night. He couldn't not. I'm not sure it was like it kept catching on broadcast. Like, there's nothing going on. He's like, let's go. I'm not sure, Charlie, Ben, if you guys saw that, but he was just going to town trying to get the crowd in.
You could tell, you could tell that Borjan was kind of driving this driving force, trying to push him for the win. Every time the ball went out behind him, he'd absolutely be sprinting to go get another ball to play it, to take the goal kick, and he'd be like waving the whole way. It was he was an energy guy. I think there was one play where Honduras were on a counterattack and the ball was about to land just outside the penalty area, but he just comes and dives at it with his head.
Yes.
Like, Milan Borjan rocks, man. He's the best.
Oh, he does. That tattoo as well.
Best.
That tattoo, the Canada soccer tattoo is amazing as well. We all got to get those. We all got to get those at some point. Okay, Canada versus the U.S. on Sunday night, 7:30 Eastern time on TSN. Brady, you talked a little bit about Herdman trying to rest some of these players with Osorio and Kay. Well, maybe inadvertently. He only made 2 subs last night. We'll probably see quite a bit of rotation in this game, I'm assuming.
I would think so, yeah. I mean, you mentioned it there. It was probably inadvertent because he was adamant after the game that, that they wanted 3 points. That was their full focus. And maybe he doesn't change anything in the second half because he liked the way it looked after the break. And that's fair enough. There was some serious improvements. But now that you did drop 2 points at home and you kind of thought, these 2 home games were maybe 6 points, 4 at the worst. Now you kind of have to pick something up on the road against the Americans, don't you? And maybe before you would have been happy with a decent performance, but no points to show for it. But I think now they're going to want at least a draw, probably, right?
Yeah.
So what the good news is, though? The good news is the Americans also dropped points in El Salvador last night.
Very true.
Yes.
Jamaica lost to Mexico, and I think if Mexico just runs away with it, Jamaica's probably one of the teams that Canada's fighting with. So I don't think they're in terrible position yet.
So then again, switching to the States on Sunday, we'll go around the table for this one. What's one thing you want carried over from the game that we saw on Thursday, and one new thing that we want from Herdman or from the team? Benedict, we'll start with you.
One thing I won't carry it over is the intensity. I think everyone sort of really wanted the points there and really pushed for everything. And every second phase as well, like everyone was always going for the ball, and I want to see that continued. And one new thing, I think, is just personnel. Like, just rotate the squad a bit, get Mark Anthony Kay in there, Jonathan Osorio, and see what these guys can do against the top team in Concacaf.
Brady?
Yeah, I think three natural central midfield players is going to be really important, particularly on the road. And with regards to something to carry over, more Aleister Johnson just winning every 50-50. They were like 95-5. They were even 50-50. 50-50 would imply he lost half of them, and that was not the case. So, yeah.
Oh, he talked about how he played as a 6 growing up, and now he can kind of play as just like a different kind of 6. And you can see that in the way that he plays. Charlie, what's one thing you want carried over? One new thing from Herdman and Co.
one thing I want carried over is Stefan Eustachio. I like he's got to play Canada when Canada played them at the Gold Cup. I think you were very, very. It was very clear that Stefan Eustachio was missing from that game. I think he was suspended for that one with the yellow cards, which ridiculous. But anyway, yeah, you need him in that game because the U.S. is a team with quite a good midfield. Something I'd like to see different is just maybe a bit of a return to, if not basics, then just things that we know work. Like stop trying to overthink things. Stop trying to, pull out some weird curveball tactical shifts that try to catch the U.S. by surprise. This is a talented Canada team. They should just play. They should just play the way that they have done in the past, the way that's been successful for them in the past. You don't need to overthink it. And I think there was an element of overthinking it last night against Honduras. You don't need to do that. We know how good this team is. Just play them. Just let them go.
Brady, so you're kind of nodding along to that. You have to be in agreement with that statement.
Yeah, I just think, you win 15 corners, I think it was last night. You need an equalizer. Don't play short. Just whip one in the box and hope somebody gets on the end of it. Honestly, that's it's CONCACAF. Anything can happen. Just put one in the mixer.
Well, we'll leave it at that. So Canada taking on the U.S. at 7:30 Eastern time against Sunday night on TSN. Check back on the CPL Soccer on YouTube as well as on Twitter. I believe we're going to be doing a post-match sort of debrief with some of our friends at OneSoccer. If you're to check into that live, it'll show up on your feeds after as well. We'll have lots to talk about, I'm sure, after that U.S. game because, as Brady said, it is CONCACAF. So, again, it is CONCACAF. Switching to the CPL. Switching to the CPL quickly to talk about some of the games at midweek. Cavalry FC 1, FC Edmonton 0. Charlie, you're our correspondent for this game. As we kind of just going to pick up on the conversation we had in the last episode, Edmonton just cannot catch a break in this tie. Tons of pressure in this game, especially in that second half, but they just can't break the Roman wall. Marco Carducci.
Yeah, you start to feel bad for Edmonton because that might have been like one of the best games they've played this year against a very good Cavalry team. They were on the front foot, the whole time. And Alan Koch sort of said before the game, because in the reverse fixture on Sunday, Cavalry's on the front foot the whole time and really probably should have finished a couple more chances and won that game. But Edmonton ends up with the point on a road, which is nothing to sniff at. It's a good thing, but they come back home. They want to be the protagonists, and for a lot of that game, they were. But it just doesn't happen for them. Marco Carducci was exceptional. He made, I think, 7 saves in that game. And, it was raining horrendously and it was windy. And, Alan Koch said it wasn't that bad. Cavalry said it was bad. I wasn't there. I don't know for sure. Maybe it's Edmonton not looking for excuses there. But yeah, it's just got to be frustrating for that team to not be rewarded for a game like that because they had so many shots. They had really good chances. They definitely took away a lot of the space that they gave Cavalry on a Sunday. And they would win the ball in those areas. They would have a lot of those opportunities around the box, and the ball didn't go in the net, not even once.
No, sorry, go ahead, Charlie.
No, that's pretty much it. You've got to be quite frustrated with that if you're Edmonton, and you could tell by the way everybody was speaking, especially Alan Koch after the game. They were frustrated because they really, really thought that was the one.
And we can talk quite a bit about Cavalry, and we have on the show, but just quickly on Edmonton, Benedict, maybe we'll flip it to you here. This attacking unit of this team, they scored 2 goals against Cavalry. Yeah, the one was a penalty on the weekend, but they come out of this game and they also look impressive. They challenged Carducci again, 7 saves, that double save at the end. One of them should have went in for sure. And some of these new players that Edmonton's brought in Alan Koch, it really doesn't look that bad for this team. It's just, the results, as Koch says, let's put them at the bottom of the table, even though we we haven't looked like that for at least 90 minutes on Wednesday. Benedict.
Sorry, I missed the end of your question there. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just saying, like, this team does look like not bad going forward at times, right? It just is maybe just a bit frustrating for this Edmonton team at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. I think they just need to maybe finish some more of the chances. I think they're definitely seem to be getting in the right areas, and then obviously up top the Eddie Krugers, as we like to call them, and when those guys get chances in the box, they can finish chances when they get them, but it's just when they come up against a good defense, it's kind of hard to take those chances. And as we sort of said, the Cavalry has an amazing defense, and Edmonton just didn't get the chances in the box maybe that they needed to be able to put them away.
And then Karifa Yao and Marco Carducci really the stars of this game for Cavalry, even though Anthony Novak got the goal. Charlie, I think you picked Marco Carducci for your player of the match, but it really could have gone to Yao as well, right? It was an incredible performance by those two specifically.
Yeah, I have to be honest. I had Karifa Yao's name written down in the story I was writing, and then Marco Carducci makes that double save at the end. And I'm like, okay, I think it's probably going to have to be him. It always takes something a little special to give man of the match to a goalkeeper, unless they like save a penalty or something like that. But it had to go to him in the end. But yeah, Karifa Yao, I think he led Cavalry in maybe every stat in this game. Touches, passes, tackles, clearances, interceptions, everything. And I'm not even kidding. This was a game where Cavalry, I mean, they always try to play out of the back, right? They always try to do that. And usually when you've got Dan Klomp and David Norman Jr. on the pitch as well, it's able to be spread out a little bit more. Mason Trafford was Yao's center back partner in a two-man central defense in this game. And Mason Trafford's a very good player and a very good defender. He's absolutely incredible at closing down spaces and making those tackles. Maybe not as mobile. I think it's probably fair to say as a David Norman or a Dan Klomp, he can't necessarily cover that ground anymore in the stage of his career. And I don't think that's a knock on Mason Trafford. He's a very experienced player, but yeah, certainly Edmonton felt that they could maybe get on him a little bit, and they tried to press him. I think Easton Ongaro especially covered a lot of ground trying to, get up in Mason Trafford's, space when he had the ball. So Cavalry ended up being a little bit lopsided to that space with Karifa Yao on the right. Most of Edmonton's chances came over from that other side as well. But yeah, Karifa Yao, whenever they did play through him, it was very stable, very calm, and he was usually able to turn into something that they were able to play out on the right side with Mo Farsi or Richard Luca or something like that. And just Karifa Yao was kind of the crux of it all. He's a very, very talented player, and sometimes we forget about him a little bit because of how impressive Dan Klomp or David Norman are at the back, but Karifa Yao is right up there with them. He's a very, very impressive player.
Cavalry again continue to get results. They'll be taking on Valor FC on Saturday, heading over to Winnipeg. FC Edmonton, meanwhile, will be hosting Pacific on Saturday night in the Come On Match of the Week. Quickly, let's talk about York United and Atletico Ottawa, a 2-2 tie, an entertaining game. Benedict, you are our correspondent on this one. We'll start with York. Disappointed not to get the result considering that Malcolm Shaw equalizer. But, this team showed quite a bit of quality. You spoke specifically about their chemistry post-match, and you really saw it in the goals, right?
Yeah, especially the first goal. I think Nicholas Hamilton, he'll hit the Max Ferrari. Max Ferrari knows exactly where it's going to go and makes a nice turn and plays a perfect cross from the box. Mike Petrasso comes running in and finishes it off. And it just seemed like they had been practicing something like that, and they knew where each other were going to be. And I think that comes with time. And Jimmy Brennan spoke with after the game too. Like, those things come after you play half a season together, and now we're starting to see that. And I think maybe we're starting to talk about York as a potential playoff team if they can start picking up points. But obviously, dropping 2 points at the end kind of put a dent in that. But this team definitely has the quality, I think, to challenge for that fourth spot.
Yeah, York now 4 points out of that fourth spot behind Valor with 15 games played each. We should talk quickly about Max Ferrari because we're talking a little bit at midweek, just the four of us, about who would be, a potential best under 21 player of the year, and talking about all these sort of candidates. And like Max Ferrari is just an incredible player. Charlie, I know you're high on him specifically. Can you talk a bit about his emergence with this team and starting from the versatility in Winnipeg to now his role with this team?
Yeah, Max Ferrari's just sick. He's such an electric player.
He's
just such a fun player on the pitch. Like, and he can slot into. He's played on the wing. He's played at right fullback occasionally, and he's a very versatile player that can fit into these roles. But when he is let off the hook a little bit, he's allowed to run and play with the ball. He's just, again, an electric player. He's a player that you need to watch, and I think he's really starting to take on this role of being one of the top players on his York team. He's kind of becoming, in many ways, he's becoming the face of it, and I think that's a really fun thing for a young player. And I think if we were giving out awards like the Young Player of the Year award right now, I think Max Ferrari is at the very, very least in the top three. And for me, I think he probably has been the best under 21 player in the league this year. He's just, I can't say enough about how fun it's been to watch his development and his growth into this side. And it's just really, it also helps that he's got probably the coolest name in the league.
Okay, yeah, we went pretty far without mentioning his name. That was not bad. We'll give you credit for that.
Max Ferrari, like, come on, that's an awesome name, man.
It really is, and Humber Hawks legend as well. Benedict? I always want to talk about your Humber. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And signed a new long-term deal at York. We should mention that as well. Quickly on Ottawa before we go, Malcolm Shaw just getting these goals. This is 6 on the season. I was second behind Joao Morelli in the Golden Boot race. Benedict, I know you talked to Ottawa after the game about just like how clutch they've been at home specifically. They haven't lost yet. Considering they're bottom of the table, it's impressive that they continue to get these results at TD Place.
Yeah, after the game, Ben McKendry spoke a lot about the fans of helping them. So with Canada, I guess too, the fans keep kind of sort of willing them on and pushing for them to help score a goal. And Malcolm Shaw keeps coming up with big late goals. And he's also playing out of position. Malcolm Shaw playing on sort of like that left wing kind of Ryan Telfer role as he was suspended and didn't look out of place, I don't think. And Mista sort of said like he had a lot of responsibility in that game, and he stepped up and came up big with another huge late goal.
Yeah, who's been the MVP for Ottawa so far? If it's not Malcolm Shaw, right? Just been that impressive, and they got the result without Ryan Telfer. We should mention he's now serving his suspension for what we mentioned last week. Okay, I think that just about wraps it up. We'll finish off by teeing up some of the games this weekend. We mentioned Valor versus Cavalry, FC Edmonton versus Pacific. Tonight, if you're listening to this on Friday, Halifax taking on Forge in the opening game of their Labor Day weekend, because they'll play again on Labor Day Monday, hosting York. That's fascinating to play 2 games on the long weekend out east. Brady, how do you feel about that? I mean, it feels like something you do in men's league soccer, right?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you brought up men's league. This is a good time to plug how my team remains undefeated. I'll keep you guys posted on that.
Yeah, that was part of it. Yeah. So did you? What game was it that you came on? Oh, it was the Vancouver Pacific game. To be fair, you kind of called the result because you hopped in the group chat and you said, "Feeling good." You scored like a hat trick or something, got an assist.
It was 4 goals. Let's get it. Let's
God.
get the stats right here. And I manifested that 4-goal performance from Pacific. Our last 3 men's league games have been canceled. I think because George Free Fest was on. Maybe that's more of the norm for men's league than a 4-goal performance for me. But I'll keep you guys posted. I'll keep you posted.
Okay, very good. What's the name of the league? St. John's District something, or what is it?
It's the Intermediate Men's League.
Fair enough.
That's a great
Stephen
name.
Hart hasn't given you a call yet?
We'll be in touch. It's complicated, but it's an indirect feeder league for the Wanderers, if you will.
They don't want to have to pay the ferry. That's a lot of money to get you down there for every home game. It's a lot of money.
It's very true. Very true.
Okay, we'll be back again, as we mentioned, on Sunday to recap Canada versus the U.S. That'll be live on our YouTube channel and Twitter. Feel free to check that out, and also if you're so inclined to check it out on your feed after. We'll be back also to recap CPL action later this week. Okay, until then, take care.